What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of a Stoked Podcast. Don't mind the crying baby if you can hear it. That's just Junior being Junior. Yes, everybody, welcome. So it's me right now. My partner in crime, I believe he's coming in soon, and our guest for today, Rags Morales, should be joining at some point. So I'm gonna vamp a little bit, but that's cool. I'm gonna talk about something that if you watch Top 5 Live and you follow Morgan Iverson, you've seen a little bit of he and I have this kind of back and forth thing about verses. Like for our show, we do top 5, yeah, excuse me, top 5, lists, and we did this episode where we did. Oh, hold on. We could bring in Jamari. He's slow. He's been doing work in the Cayman Islands. He's moving that weight. Jamari, you ready, man?
Indeed, sir. You can't tell everyone my secrets.
Hey, I know you got the police looking out for you, man. I know you got the police looking out for you. So, everybody, give a happy birthday to this man to the left. I don't know why he's not showing his face. I know you got warrants. I know you got warrants. Let's give this man a happy birthday. He just turned 85.
Somewhere
he looks young. He looks young for his age.
Somewhere in there.
But happy birthday, sir, cousin.
Thank you.
But before our guest gets on, like I said, I was just doing a conversation. We were having a conversation on Top 5 Live about who would win a versus, Beyonce or Janet Jackson.
I believe I caught part of that at the
right.
end.
Morgan has made it. He's made it a mission to prove me wrong that Janet can't. He keeps saying that I said it's going to be a wash. Like Janet's going to wash Beyonce. I never said that. I just said that I can, for every song that you bring up of Beyonce's, I can bring up a song for Janet. Right. Like I could like that, like, and it's nothing against Janet, because in the same show, I said right now, she's the closest thing to like a Michael Jackson like figure. Like that's the flowers that I was giving her. But he seems to be, intent on trying to make it look like I'm disrespecting Beyonce. And I don't know why.
As I said, I caught the tail end of it. I did not catch all of it. And I was amused because I will say personally, I have a bias towards Janet Jackson.
I think. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I tell you what I was thinking, but yeah. Go ahead.
It's just I feel like Janet is almost at the point where she's underrated now.
I agree. I think people forget. Like you and I have talked about this. Janet has an entire album of singles that everybody knows.
She has more than one, but yeah.
But I mean, she's got like the Control album is legitimately no skips. None. Like if you go through the list, and I can go through the list real quick.
I mean, you can like we have sat.
I
have sat on the phone with you having that conversation.
Right, but I
done the breakdown of Control.
But like I did it on the show, and what annoyed me is that Morgan tried to play like he ain't heard some of these songs before. So like, I mean, think about it though. Like, what have you done for me lately? Nasty. When I think of you, Control, Let's Wait a While, The Pleasure Principle, Funny How Time Flies. This man tried to tell me that he's never heard the song Let's Wait a While.
If there was a song on there that you could say that's the song,
I would say the Funny How Time Flies song would be the one that most people, might not have heard.
Either one of those, I would accept that you've never heard those.
But that's what I'm saying. Like you could, I can stick, I could do like 7 rounds and only stick on those songs. You know what I'm saying? What's up, Kevin? What's up, Kevin?
I feel.
Hold on. Come on, man. You gotta. I got little man in the room. Please don't jump down on there. I got little person running around. See you later, buddy. I would turn the camera on him, but he's not wearing all his clothes right now. And no, not today. Come on, buddy. Go ahead. Go ahead. Please close the gate. Sorry, everybody. You just got to peek into my home. The man who was eating a squirrel sandwich at the beginning of the show. Yes, that dude.
That is, all of those things is one thing, but I legitimately feel like it's not hard to look at the catalog that Janet Jackson has put out. And you're talking about for the vast majority of her albums, you can easily pick 3 to 7 tracks on every one of on at least the first 4, 5 albums easily.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm pretty sure we've talked about my feelings about the Velvet Rope album. So
you know what it is? I think it's the same thing as like Usher Chris Brown versus. I think if you did a Usher Chris Brown versus, and let's say your audience was mostly 35 and younger, it will favor Chris Brown.
Will it?
I think it would favor Chris Brown.
Maybe you're right.
But if you did 35 and up, it's going to favor Usher.
But I feel like Usher did so much even for that set. And like you'd have to go really young to start really getting to Chris Brown. I feel like you almost
maybe 30 and below. Maybe 30 and below. Janet too. But that's what I'm saying. Like if your audience is a bunch of 30-year-olds and up, every Janet Jackson song is going to slap. Every single one. Now, some of the Beyonce songs, people might sit there and go, oh, okay, all right. There's nothing against her. Like, there are certain songs where like I like them, but they're not like a versus song. Like if you played Me, Myself, and I, that's a really good song.
It is.
But that's such an easy song to challenge.
I think
she's got very easy songs to challenge, I should say.
One thing I'll say about Beyonce, particularly on the later half of her career, a lot of her big songs aren't necessarily singles.
That's my point too.
So while you may have Janet is known for her singles, you got to start. And once I'm going to go back to Velvet Rope. Velvet Rope is the deep cut album. That's the one where you're going to start.
Is it?
Or Janet. It's either going to be one of those two. It's either going to be the Janet period album, or it's going to be Velvet Rope, is where you're going to start getting quote unquote deep cuts from her. And you've had all of these, she just was throwing bangers left and right.
She was. Rhythm Nation, like if you look at it, Control to Rhythm Nation to Janet to the Velvet Rope to All For You. Those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those 5 albums are monstrous.
And when you look at that now, and now here's where I'm going to come back on the Beyonce side. Her early career, I feel like those first 3 albums are monster albums too. But I feel like the other albums are more. I feel like the Lemonade album and the Beyonce quote unquote Black album, those are the more artistic albums.
I'm trying to remember, like her second album, Beyonce's second album. What songs came off her second album?
I'm trying to remember because which one had Red Alert on it and Halo?
Hey, was that the second album?
It was either the second or the third.
I cannot remember. I don't know why I can't remember. Now, there are people who are like, well, you could throw in her Destiny's Child songs. And I'm like, yeah, you could.
You could. And
that just means you need help. That's how I look at it.
Like I'm going to go off your solo aspect. And I'm going to go off your solo.
B-Day, that's what it is. Okay. Now
Well,
B-Day
okay,
had
so what
B-Day
Sasha
had
Fierce
bangers
preferred?
on it.
What Sasha
Deja Vu, Ring the Alarm. Well, now Irreplaceable, that's a banger.
It is. It may not be. It is definitely one of her biggest songs.
Get Me Body is a banger.
Yes, it is.
I don't know if Deja Vu.
Deja Vu is a good song.
I like these songs. Like I actually like what's up, Kenji? Beautiful Liar. I don't know if that's like
I'm actually having a hard time. I'm kind of blanking off of a Beautiful Liar at the moment.
I think isn't Beautiful Liar the song with Shakira? No?
Again, having a hard time placing it off the top. I think it is. I think Chad is saying it is.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm trying to go through her albums to see, like, okay, the next one is I Am Sasha Fierce, which
isn't Halo on that one?
So If I Were a Boy, okay, Single Ladies is a banger. That's a nuke.
That is
I give them a nuke.
At one point, I thought that was easily going to be, and it still kind of is, like the go-to song. But she has so many. She actually has enough that there's enough.
She got enough. Like it's a competition. Before I Let Go is not her song, Kenji. It's not her song.
No, you cannot give her that song. I'm sorry.
It's not her song, dude. Janet don't need covers. I just want you to understand this. Like Miss Jackson doesn't need cover. I don't think she does. She's done cover.
Is there anything like I don't even remember if I've ever heard her cover.
But I'm saying off the album, If I Were a Boy, that was a big song. I don't know if it's a nuke. Single Ladies is a nuke. Halo might be a nuke.
Halo is a nuke. I will say that.
I mean, so she doesn't get to perform the songs that she sings. I'm saying that Janet.
I would not put that.
I wouldn't put that on a. That's an easily contestable song, is what I'm saying. I'm trying to acknowledge songs that have. What are you talking about?
About three different.
Before I Let Go is a cover.
Covers. Before I Let Go,
she didn't write it.
She did a Sweet Dreams cover too. I forgot about that.
I'm talking about songs. Oh, we got our guest of the moment. So I'm gonna give him his introduction and bring him in. He might have something to say in this. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So our next guest has a career that's almost 3 decades long. His detailed, expressive, and textured art style has touched some of comics' greatest characters, including Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, the Avengers, and more. A comic drawn by him is instantly recognizable and has immediate weight and substance. As always, a round of applause for the always interesting Rags Morales. What? Hello. Can't hear you.
Oh.
How are you, man? How are you?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now.
All right, good. It doesn't. There's, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm an old man in the young man's world.
I'm still trying to figure all this out, man.
Yeah, sorry for being late. I was having email problems with a client. So.
Oh, no worries. We were just having. We were just having a spirited conversation about Beyonce and Janet Jackson.
One that continues.
We're vamping.
We're never going to end.
It's
I gotta say.
Go ahead.
For me, I gotta say it's Penny.
It's Penny. Yes. See, this is why we're friends. This is my friend. That's just why we're friends.
And I tell you something. Was it Bernadette Peter? No. Jesus. Bernadette Stamos.
Yeah, I think so.
Played the sister.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, I think that's her last name.
That was a crush of mine. It still is a crush of mine. I've seen recent pictures. She's still a gorgeous woman.
I believe.
Gorgeous woman.
I believe she's actually very close friends with a mutual a friend of mine. Well, he's a friend of mine. He was a friend of my mother. He worked with my mom as a friend of my mother. But I believe he did work with her. Like, he did a TV show, and he had her come in and be in the show. I believe so. I'm almost certain.
I know
But
she
anyway,
did some albums. I haven't heard the music though. But
yes, yep. So welcome to a Stoked Podcast. Welcome to my show, and thank you for being on it. It's been a minute since I've seen you. I haven't seen you since Rhode Island, or was it Boston?
Okay, I've been to both.
I didn't see you. I don't think I saw you at.
If it was Fan Expo, it's probably Boston.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it's Boston. It was definitely Boston because I didn't see you at Rhode Island. So, but at Rhode Island, it wasn't a Fan Expo that I did. But anyway, it's great to have you on.
Thank you.
Yes. How are you? How's things?
I'm like everybody else. I don't want to say that. I'm like everyone else. I'm stressing over the times, I'm a very political. See, Ronald Reagan became president when I was 14 years old.
Okay.
And prior to that, it was Carter, and then prior to him, it was Gerald Ford, who was, of course, after Nixon got booted.
Yep.
And I remember brownouts and blackouts, and I remember gas lines that if you had in order to get gas, you would have to have a even or odd numbered plate, the last number, really? Even or odd numbered day. So if you had an even number day, like the first of a month, even numbers can get gas.
Really?
And it was like that. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was all kinds. It was just it was a difficult time that all of us. Excuse me, the light. This is going to knock over. Okay, there we are. It was a difficult time that when Reagan came into office, all of a sudden everything was beautiful again. And even at 14, I knew that shit was bullshit. You know? There's no way. I mean, we had the son of Sam, and I'm a Mets fan, so the Yankees back to back. Are you kidding me? and then all of a sudden, this lifestyles of the rich and famous,
Yeah.
So I smelled a big pile of stink, and I couldn't figure it out why. And then come the 90s with the Bushes and the Bushes and the Bushes. It just felt like a black cloud.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be a conspiracy because I was always susceptible to conspiracy theory. So I didn't want to say anything like, it's a deep state government and all this other crap.
Right.
Little did I know it was just basically a corporation takeover of the country.
Yeah.
And we're seeing
it doesn't even have to require any. Yeah, it doesn't have to require any kind of theory. It's pretty much you can find that history. You're right.
Yeah, it's right. It's out in our face now because now they're emboldened. They're too big to jail, they say. So I've been listening ever since I was 14. I've been paying attention to politics, but I'd say it's been about over the last 10 years. I've been really taking a deep dive, and I listen to 8 hours of political radio a day.
Wow,
Monday through Friday.
That sounds really depressing, especially over the last 5 years? Just the last 5 or 6 years.
Do you ever feel like you have to take any kind of breaks from it ever?
I'm sorry?
Do you ever feel like you have to take any breaks from it? Kind of give yourself a breather for maybe like a day or two?
Oh yeah, occasionally. Yeah, but see, here's the thing. When you're an information junkie like I am, it's about learning why. I'm like the annoying little kid. Why all the time, right?
Right.
So for me, it's just like it's learning what I didn't know and putting the pieces together and understanding history, and the way things and why things happen. What happened with the Supreme Court decisions of Buckley versus Vallejo or Buckley versus oh geez, there was another Supreme Court decision. Anyway, it led to Citizens United, all about it's and it's Juvinitsky and Greenspan. It's just it's all kinds of interesting thing how one thing led to the other. When you understand that, you see it come, and then you know why Trump got away with what he did, because Bush got away with what he did, and the reason and the common denominator there was William Barr. He was also the DOJ then.
Right.
So, so that's just, for me, I find it fascinating, and it is infuriating, but I also get to hear a lot of experts coming in, because what I listen to is something called a free speech radio. It's free speech TV, actually.
Right.
And it's what the fairness doctrine used to be about. It was about having to provide information that was truth. And if you don't know a subject matter, you bring in an expert and you have them explain it to you.
Right.
And ever since 1987, when Ronald Garrett, because it wasn't a law, it was a Federal Communications Commission's, it was their regulation, and it made sense, for its time. But when Reagan came in, he says, well, who needs the truth? Screw that. You can, when you lie to people, it's a lot easier to screw them. So that's what he was trying to do. That's what he did. So
yeah, I'm Jamari and I have talked about this. I try to stay abreast of what's going on with politics, but if I deep dive into it, I'll get infuriated or depressed. So I get my information, but I'm like, all right, just give me the, like I said, give me the truth, but I can't stay here too long, because if I stay, like, I remember, during just recently, like, up until Trump was voted in, I was probably more into politics than I ever have. Like, even between me and my wife, we were just, and so when he got voted in, like, I had a visceral reaction, like a visceral, angry reaction that I haven't had regarding anything in politics in a long time. And I think at that point,
we're from the East Coast, we knew what kind of an asshole he was.
Yeah. So it was just like, at that point, I just said to myself, I can't take too much of this in. Like, I have to stay informed, but I can't be like watching CNN like all the time, or on CNN online and everything. Like I can't do it. Like, I can't get that viscerally angry about this, because I'm going to have to deal with this for 4 freaking years. And clearly,
I do admit I get a little fascinated with the history of kind of a how did we get here kind of situation. So I found myself finding a lot of things, particularly like a lot of podcasts have sparked me to go find information like on the Dulles brothers and how they had a huge hand in putting their fingerprints are all over what led to the conservative world. And then you've got the moral majority, that essentially connected with Carter and how he got ousted out and we came to Reagan. Like all of those kind of that stuff that fascinates me. So I've gone on some deep dives on those kinds of subjects, and that stuff.
Reagan was just an old racist from California. It's the bottom line. He was an old racist from California. He didn't like the fact that, at least in California, they paid for their further education, so you can go to community college. And he's like, well, these people are, they're protesting the war and they're protesting this and that. Why should I give them a free anything? Blah, 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 blah. Well, it's, because, he was a part of an old standard that was about to die. Yeah. And that was his last guess.
From the corporate side of things, why would you want to give an education?
Exactly. Again, keep them stupid. It makes it a lot easier. What do you think? Our education is bad as it is. Why they have No Child Left Behind, where they made it simple to pass the test, but there's no math, there's no science, and there's no art, because you can't be creative, you can't be thinking for yourself, and you can't be, thinking outside the box. So basically, they just want you in a cubicle, do what you're told, and that's it, and then bear all the burden of the taxes, because I'm not going to pay it. It's just the way they want to do it. Yeah. And Bilotti, that Vallejo and Bilotti. Those are the two, Buckley versus Vallejo and Bilotti, were the two Supreme Court's decisions. Essentially, Buckley versus Vallejo kept the cap of it used to be like, I think it was like $1,000 or $2,000 that any one individual could ever donate to a political cause. So it was capped.
Oh, okay.
That was cut out, so you could put anything you want. All right. Most people who are rich, and especially these corporations, they have their money invested in other things. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since they do want to show an income, because
Right.
they would be in charge when Reagan was in office. They would charge 72% of their taxable income after $7 million.
Right.
That's what people don't know. When they say cutting taxes, it's always about the rich. And when they say they paid 90% or 75%, they make it sound like everybody paid that. Well, anybody making $20,000 a year in 1950, what's 90% of that? Nothing. You know, you'd have to make a threshold of $4 million back then to get taxed 90%. So It was always for the rich. It was a rich tax. And then when Reagan was in office, it was 72%. So they had lowered it. But of course, the cost of living rose with the threshold. So when Buckley versus Vallejo came out, that ended the cap, and you can go ahead and spend anything you want on. But of course, like I said, rich people don't have that kind of cash because it's always in business. Because in order to avoid paying that high of a tax break or a tax rate, they would.
Just went velvet light.
Went out.
Just went to the club very quickly.
Oh, definitely. I got a disco light too.
It looks like
man. See, I'm trying to get that in. I'm trying to get one of those installed in my classroom.
I wonder. I haven't even checked if this little ring light I bought has any other colors but yellow and white.
I've not bought one. I have to invest in one. That's
the only reason I got the ring light was because I was using my lamp, and it was like I was two-faced. Like all you saw was like
one side. You get
one side of my face, and
correct.
All right.
And I had to keep
like
hey, you can see me. That's all right. That's okay. It's setting the mood. Setting the mood.
Setting a mood. Right on. Yeah, a bad one.
That's all right.
So they would take the money instead of paying those taxes. They would take that money and reinvest it in the company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they would buy things for the company, and you can't tax an asset. All right, you can only tax income. So what they did is that's what built the middle class.
Mm-hmm.
So they started opening up more jobs, and they started opening up more offices, and they were paying more into unions and things like that, and they resented it. So Buckley versus Bellotti came after that, and what that did was that it said that a corporation can pay in exchange, for the person. So if I'm Rockefeller and I'm into oil, well, Standard Oil or whatever oil is now funding this candidate,
Mm-hmm.
and then people were starting saying, "Wait a minute, that's a corporation. They don't vote. They're not people." Citizens United, corporations are people. So
right.
One after the other made it worse for where we are, and that's why we have an incredible amount of money. We're talking millions of dollars being thrown into a candidate. The reason why Louis DeJoy became our postmaster is because he was a freight magnet. He would actually I forgot the name of his company, but he was responsible for shipping things.
Mm-hmm.
He was very wealthy for it. So he threw $1 million at Trump to get him to a president, and then boom, he gets an office.
What's their name? Pretty much did the same thing. DeVos.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Same thing. Yeah, and they're just trying to privacy. They're part of this Christian network of schools that are trying to destroy public education and make it privatized. And the reason why, is Christian. Well, if you make people afraid of their death, then you make them afraid of everything, and then you keep them under thumb, because fear is the only God they pray to.
Mm-hmm.
So Zach De La Rocha said that. So So these are the things that lead us to where we are now. And of course, you go to Jude Leninsky, who was an economist in the 70s, who had the two Santa Claus theory. He said each party, and of course, this is after Nixon already destroyed the Republican Party. They were actually on the way of being ousted, like the Whigs were during the 1700s. So because Republicans have always been, too conservative, too much this and too much that. It's always about business and everything like that. But how do we become more appealing after Nixon? Well, Winsky said, well, it's a two Santa Claus thing. See, whenever the Democrats are in office, they give them things like the FDR New Deal, right? Which, by the way, Eisenhower Republicans were all about. Okay, because back then it was still racism. Back then it's still segregation. So they were getting all the benefits of 40-hour work weeks and paid vacations and workman's compensation and so forth and so on. These things were given to us by FDR in the New Deal. So that's what the Democrats were represented. Social Security, something for when you're retired. You don't have to live off your children. A Medicare. So what did the Republicans have? Well, tax cuts, I guess, So what they will do is that when a Republican is in office, spend like a mad sailor, spend like you're drunk on like as they said on The Simpsons, spend like you're a poet on payday, just go nuts, and just open up the economy, just blow it wide open, and then you have the lifestyle of the rich and famous, and people get tax cuts. At least they think they are, but they're not. They're actually getting the benefit of having their taxes dumped onto them, because the only people getting tax cuts are the rich. So you have all these things going on simultaneously, and then when the Democrats in office, they're hit with such a deficit, such a huge deficit, you force them to kill their Santa Claus, which is socialism, okay, which is things like Medicare, Medicaid, and FDA, Food and Drug Administration, all the things that are good for us, regulations, which, by the way, they want to get rid of because they've always hated regulations. Everything that FDR fought for, everything that it is now considered America, or American exceptionalism, are things that were given by FDR that every Republican fought against, or back then the Democrats, okay, because that changed with the Civil Rights Amendment in 1964. But back then, the party of money always fought against it. They didn't want us to not be slaves.
Right.
13th Amendment is another example of why we're still slavery. Shipping over to China, where there's very poor workman rights or regulations, they're getting paid pennies to the dollar instead of paying for unions here in America. That's why they're shipping everything over there.
Right.
That's why everything we have now comes from China. In fact, China now has just recently has their first crop of spoiled rich kids. Okay, the first offspring of oligarchs are now in China. That never happened before. That's recent. In fact, they're more wealthy than we are in resources, not in money, because we spend our money over there.
Right.
In resources. And they know enough to not export their labor. They're going to continue to. So, and all of these communist countries have become oligarchs now. They're all capitalists. So don't kid yourself. There's no longer, communism doesn't exist. It's all just an oligarchy.
Have you had a chance to see the Batman yet? I'm seriously, the reason why there's a point.
Are we getting off my kick?
No,
I was waiting to see where Jamari was going with it. I was like, I wonder if there was a connection.
You're making me think about that. You're talking about the rich kids. You're talking about the, that aspect of it, and how corporations have been a major factor in politics. Well,
it's been like that from the very beginning.
You're not wrong.
When the cotton gin was invented, it was so expensive that not every plantation could own it. Only the big plantations were. So they had it. They were actually get the benefits of automation, and because they had all of that, they were able to eat up the smaller plantations. Back before there was, laws against monopolies.
Right.
So it's always been
have laws against monopolies.
What's that?
Do we really have laws against monopolies?
No, not now, but back then there was no
Because
laws at all.
I know we're supposed to have them on
for
paper.
a time. We did for a time, but I mean, here's the thing. Here's the funny thing too. And it just takes a president like a Reagan to come along and just change it. In 1984, he made it so that CEOs can legally gets people from the South up to pick their lettuce. Back then, before 1984, I think it was 84, but before 84, it was illegal to have immigrants come in to work your fields. A CEO can go to jail. Reagan killed that. So now what they do is that they wait till May to go out to the fields to talk about all these immigrations coming over the south border, of course, because they're not hip to the idea that we're not paying them anymore. And they're going to politicize it because in May is when they come in to actually do the field work. That's when the picking season starts.
Right.
So, and then out there, you got Lindsey Graham shaking his fist. You sit down. These clowns just take advantage of everything, and because we don't have education or civics or any kind of critical thinking, we're left to believe it because we still think that there's a fairness doctrine out there that's giving us the truth. But in fact, the fairness doctrine said in order for you to be considered a news station, a news source, you would have to, as the owner, speak an hour of truth a day, or you would be fined. It has to be a verifiable truth. That got translated into having a subject matter that no one was an expert on. So they had con and pro discuss this subject matter. And between the two of them, polite debate, by the way, that's important because I'm going to bring that up later. Polite debate, they discussed the nuances of it. And then you'd come away thinking, okay, you know this or you know that about it. And you could either agree with this or agree with that. Doesn't matter. I got a union job to go to,
Right.
But they took that away. So, and in fact, a news owner would be fired or not fired, fined heavily if they actually misled the public with propaganda. It had to be verifiable truth. That's what the fairness doctrine was. And that got lifted, with Reagan in 87, like I said. And again, now it wasn't a law, it was a regulation. And the FCC is actually under the presidency. So if the president says, get rid of that, they get rid of it. No one bothered. It started in 1949. Nobody bothered to get rid of it up until then.
Right.
Because he knew he wanted to have a dumb society. He wanted an easily manipulated society. And in fact, if you look it up in the FCC, these news sources, Fox, OANN, even ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, all of them are corporately owned. And all of them are considered entertainment. They are categorized as entertainment, not as news. And you can look it up. Yeah, and that's how they get away with it. That's why when Smartmatic and what's the name of the voting machine company? Smartmatic was the
I know
program.
what you're talking about because it was
it was actually the voting machines, right? And they're saying it's all this voter fraud when they're not. It's really just voter suppression, but all this voter fraud going on. When they were actually taken to court, and Tucker Carlson said, "Why would anybody believe anything I have to say? It's all entertainment, because nobody knows. At least the common man generally does not know that they're not news; they're entertainment. So it's more of an opinion, being news, or pretending to be news.
Right.
That's why we're screwed.
Well."
Not to bring you down, but anyway, yeah.
No, I'm not down. Trust me. Listen. I'm 40 years old. I've lived enough of a life to know that there's a lot that's gonna go wrong, and it's gonna go wrong badly. But I like to have hope that we won't totally self-destruct. So I want to talk about something a little more positive, though. A little more positive, because we really could talk politics all day. And I would love to have you come back on and do that. But there are a lot of people who watch my show who are fans of yours. and fans of your work. I am a fan of your work. I've expressed this to you on more than one occasion. I tell people all the time, I have the drawing that you did where you redrew my drawing on my chest, the character on my chest, the face, and you wrote "Listen to Rags" on it. It's sitting right there. I see it all the time. I even look at the funny part is I look at it because so it's a viewpoint of a face that comic characters, artists draw all the time, down, mouth wide, yelling. So I'm like, all right, there it is. All right, I just do it again. And I just keep drawing that face every now and again. But I actually, what I don't know though, like how did you get started? Because we've had a lot of conversations, and I have no idea how you got in the comic book industry.
Yeah, I'm just like every kid loves to draw, and I just didn't love to draw. I mean, I always drew.
Right.
I always find other artists fascinating, and it didn't matter who it was, if they were skillful above me, and they were brilliant. So, everything from, Bill Gallo of the Daily News used to do sports cartoons, and I'd be into that, or Norman Rockwell. I was a Boy Scout, so when I was in Boy Scouts, we just read this magazine called Boy's Life, and he did a lot of the paintings on that, and so it was just I was just fascinated with just artists, the ability to be able to draw something and tell a story with it, and I would go into my library and every time I went to school, I would always go straight to the art section and come home with books and always be late with them. So it's a thing, the movie Rocket Man has a scene where a young Reginald Dwight, Elton John, is playing the piano, and there's a Rachmaninoff piece that the instructor is playing, and then she stops and says, "Okay, now you," and he's playing note for note, perfectly, and then stops, and she asks him, "Well, why did you stop?" He says, "Well, that's where you stopped." It's just when something instinctually, it's another language that you instantly pick up on that not a lot of other people can do. You think everyone else can, but but not everyone else can. So when I saw a painting, or when I saw a drawing, or if I watched an artist draw, it always fascinated me, and it was like, I get it. I understand what you're trying to do. It's just a matter of getting what I can see and what's in my head, and get the motor skills. If I can get the motor skills going, then I have something, and that's basically, the genesis of wanting to become an artist. It's like, today when people say, "Does my child have talent?" They want to know if they should pursue art. And I don't even look at the work. I only ask two questions. I ask, do they go to bed with it, and do they wake up with it? Because you can't teach it. Everything else is a skill set. Everything else is, passion is the difference between Michael Jordan and,
Andrew
the
Bynum.
last guy on the bench.
Huh? Yeah. He said Andrew Bynum.
Andrew. Well, it's just the difference, because he loved to shoot. I mean, to him it was like breathing, and he would shoot 700 shots a day. Every day he would just shoot, and he loved it. He just loved the feel of a ball and the sound of a ball going through a net. So, and so passion is the only thing you can't teach. If you're not passionate, there's a reason why I have two bass guitars upstairs that are collecting dust. One, I have a 19-year-old, living with me. And two, the stuff that becomes work isn't as fun to me. If it's passion, then the stuff that sucks is actually kind of fun. There's always a lightning strike happening. There's always, a bunch of, you're drawing, there's a bunch, you're kicking up a lot of smoke and debris, and all of a sudden, boom, a strike of lightning comes, and you get it.
Right.
And then you put that away, add every other lightning strike that came along. And then, of course, being the only, brown kid in a white neighborhood didn't help. It helped me later, but at the time when I wanted to make friends, I was like, oh yeah, Puerto Rican kid, hey, you spick, all this other shit, and so that was a reality for me,
Yeah.
and so I stayed in a lot. I didn't play a lot with the neighborhood kids, and my mother thought I was weird. She was always trying to encourage me to go outside. I said, why? So I can get beat up. I
Yeah.
was a sensitive kid. And so I sat in a corner and I'd draw and draw and draw like crazy. We used to have family in the Bronx, and we'd go visit them. And it would be my mother comes from an extended family. My grandfather had two wives. One died, and then he married my grandmother.
Oh, okay.
So he was a widower,
Mm-hmm.
and so he had 4 kids in each side. So there's a lot of cousins in a small
Right.
New York apartment. And
Wow.
of course, if I got bored, I'd want to draw something. They would just give me a paper bag. It was before plastic became available for groceries. So they give me a brown paper bag and
Just
a
drawing the
pencil, and I
paper back.
draw on that.
There you go.
So it's just a thing that you just can't turn off. I turn it
Yeah.
off now because I get sick of it after a while. I've been doing it for when you're doing it for 52 years, it can be tiring, and you do need a change of pace. And I'm at that age now where if I put in like a 10-hour day, my eyes get bleary. I can't fix them.
Yep.
So
Yeah. I
I
get headaches. I get headaches when I do that long.
headaches. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
So then the comics became my refuge, and it was more fascination. This was a simplified form of drawing. It wasn't painting like a Norman Rockwell. It was cartooning. It was closer to Bill Gallo for me. So I became fascinated with that, and of course, the power fantasies always helped. For a kid who's disenfranchised, in the neighborhood. Despite the fact that both my parents worked hard and we had a good house, I had a good middle class upbringing. We had a fireplace, we had an in-ground pool because my folks
wow.
worked hard for it.
Yeah.
And we had a house. And I went to a good high school. I had good electives. I had draftsmanship and architectural drawing and interior design. These are electives in my high school.
That's
Back in the
actually
80s.
that is super helpful, especially
Yeah,
comic books
yeah,
being
absolutely.
you have to be an architectural drawing. You have to and
Yeah.
sometimes you have to do ornate interiors, and which I
We
hate.
even
I hate drawing
we
all that.
we
I
even
hate
had
it.
a framing class for carpentry.
Really.
Yeah, because these were electives. And so we had a wide array of things, and I took everything. I even took interior design, but I didn't like the teacher, so I quit that one. But I wanted to learn everything there was about what was providing for me because I wanted to be an artist. I knew it wasn't going to be an easy choice. I could have, I could have been bored with something like accounting or something more predictable. But it was in me to be an artist, and that's what I pursued it. So, come around junior high school, something new was happening in my area, and it was the Joe Cuba School of Cartoon and Graphic Arts had opened up in Dover, New Jersey, which was a 15-minute drive from where I used to live.
Oh wow.
So it's like, I don't know if there's a God, but damn it, everything's lining up for me.
You gotta
And
get it.
so I went to Saturday morning sketch classes, which was really cool. You would go to the mansion, and a lot of the and those teachers, most of those teachers were third-year students at the school. So we're
Now,
being taught by young.
I was going to ask, were you in the inaugural class, or were you down
No,
a couple? Okay.
no, the inaugural class was mid-70s. I was still in grade school.
Yeah, I was never. I forgot when it opened or when it started.
75, I think it was.
Okay.
75. Yeah, I was 11 years old. No, I was 9 years old when it opened.
Okay.
Yeah, I was born in '66. So yeah, 75. I think the first class came out, and that was the Rick Veitch and Steve Bissett and John Toddleman and Tim Truman and those cats. But yeah, so I went in the mid '80s.
Okay. Okay.
And I was I graduated in 1985. Graduated high school, so I was class from like '86 to '88, so 2 years, and then I left.
Were there any
Um,
artists of note in your particular class from the Keyword School?
Tom Rainey,
Okay.
he did a lot of work for Marvel.
Yeah, I met him.
Uh,
Good guy.
prior to my class was Brad Mancatta, but he I don't know where he was in comics for a while, and I don't think he's kind of disappeared. Gina Going was a colorist and did a lot of work, and in fact, she went to my high school, and she actually married Tom Rainey.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah, I did a couple of issues of Black Condor and the Mighty Crusaders with a former classmate, Richard Space. But he's no
okay.
longer doing comics. He was like a small smattering. I think I might have been the most um, consistently employed in the comic industry of that class. I don't recall anybody else. We had Mike Milo was doing some animation, so they kind of went in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think I might have been the one that came out and did it. So
What
that's
was your
basically how I got into it.
right? What was your first? Was your first art? It wasn't Turok though. Like your first art was in what was it?
Forgotten Realms. This is
Okay.
it was a TSR comic. DC and TSR had gotten together.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just basically, J.R.R. Tolkien stuff, it was just, Lord of the Rings kind of stuff. And in fact, TSR has always been dabbling in comics, and they gave a lot of breaks to mostly Cuba students. In fact, when I
Right.
went and I started doing Forgotten Realms back in 1989, I had Forgotten Realms, Jan Dursema, another
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
graduate
Mm-hmm.
who was married to Tom Mandrake, also Cuba students. And
Mm-hmm.
they were between, the original group and me.
Mm-hmm.
She was doing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Ron Randall was doing Dragonlance, another Kubrick graduate. Um, and even Tom Rainey, I gave him his. I make it sound like I'm more powerful than that. I got him his first publishing gig.
Nice.
And he did a couple of issues toward the end of my run of Forgotten Realms, and then he went on from there. He said, "Okay, well, now I got my portfolio piece. I'm going to Marvel." So that's how that is.
Now I've
But yeah,
noticed
no,
you don't do as much Marvel work though. It seems like oh
no,
cool.
this is Dwalamore Omen. You
Okay.
know those? This thing is 33 years old.
Oh wow.
It's a wax
Oh, I
thing.
was gonna ask.
In
I
the
thought it was
winter
clay.
time, not it's wax. Winter time, you go to the mall. Those kiosks have these wizards, and they're holding a glass
Right.
ball.
Yep.
Well, that's what used to be here. So my
Oh, that's a
father took a
missing
copy.
can.
Yeah, well, it melted. It's wax. But my father saw the wizards that this guy was making by hand, and he showed up one day with a copy of Forgotten Realms and said, "Can you do this wizard?" And the guy said, "Sure." So this is a custom, probably the most thoughtful gift I've ever had in my
That's
life.
awesome.
With this
That is
Dwalamar
really
Omen from Forgotten Realms.
That's awesome.
And
I actually remember those. I remember those books. I remember seeing the not commercials. The word I'm looking for is like the
ads.
in the comic books, the ads. Thank you. I remember seeing the
Mhm.
ads in the books at that time. I mean, I was what 9 or 10 at the time, but I mean,
Okay.
I was still reading a bunch of comics,
Okay.
so I
Then the
do
one
remember
ad that you
those.
saw for Forgotten Realms was like a crew on a ship, and they're pointing toward a distant land, and there was a
Yep.
big moon
Yeah.
and flying dragons. That was mine.
Yep. Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
They completely changed
Learned something new.
the composition for whatever reason. But the dragons were like flying like buzzards, and they were like
Mm-hmm.
circling around the moon. So it had like this really cool, design, and the moon was closer to them, and the distant land was a little bit closer to them. So it fit more of a vertical format for some
Yeah.
whatever reason. I don't know why, but they completely blew it all up and went all over direction. Maybe they were trying to see if I'd complain, because they're always looking for people who are coachable, you know,
Really.
uh, because it was terrible. It was it was significantly worse. And anybody who had any kind of, and they had art directors, so anybody who had any kind of art direction knew that it was bad. The original layout was much better.
Okay.
So, but hey, that's what they do, because it's we're not necessary. We're entertainers.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've been told.
Yeah, we make ourselves necessary. So if you come in with like a diva, you're not gonna last long.
Yeah, that's what I've been. I think Jim Shooter said that to me the night that we had actually had dinner about not having a diva personality.
Wasn't that one? Didn't we have a similar conversation in like one of our first episodes where?
With Jamal Eagle.
Yeah, he's talking about if
Jamal
you can either be good, or you're either going to be good or fast, but you can't have a bad attitude and be slow about it. You're not going to be in there very.
Oh yeah, you could be 2 or 3 things.
Okay.
You could be either very good, very fast, or very nice.
All right.
If any 2 of those 3 things combined makes the other one tolerable. So you could be slow if you're very good and you're very nice.
Right.
If you're very fast and you're very good, you could be a shithead and they'll put up with you.
Right.
So that's the bottom line with that. So yeah, that's something that Mike Carlin said. Yeah.
Okay.
And he's right.
Yeah.
This is clear. Yeah. That's clearly it's very established.
Yeah. So that's that bit. Yeah. And that's basically it, because again, they'll find someone to replace you easy, and you're only as good as the title that you're doing. So, if you do a Spider-Man, well, the pejorative is, well, he must be good, it's Marvel's #1 title. No, maybe he's not that good. He just happened to fall into it because they had a particular story that was available at the time. They had no other artist to do it, and they gave him a shot.
Yeah.
Or maybe there was a new title, yet another Spider-Man title that didn't have an artist.
No, they usually have about 5 or 6 at
the time. Right. Yeah. So they had to be there, and they're not that good, but they're good enough that they'll get by, and next thing you know, they're stars from perception, not because they're actually worth it.
So speaking of shots, what do you consider to be like the project or the title that you did that like you maybe felt established? Like, okay, people started to know you, they kind of recognize you a little bit, your work and your name. What was your big break?
Yeah, you could slave away forever in any field, but it has to take the right atmosphere for things to work out. And in this particular case, I had always gotten some in-house back pats. They'd always pat my back in-house. With Forgotten Realms, I was very productive. And occasionally I'd do something that was really eye-popping. Maybe there was a really cool camera angle or a good layout with the panels or a good drawing. And I progressively got better because I was good enough to get in, and then you're paid to continue to improve.
Right.
So that's very key. And so at the end of Forgotten Realms, then I started doing Black Condor, and I had 3 editors. Toward the end of Forgotten Realms, Elliot Magan was an editor, and he was in the same office, because back in DC they used to share offices. In fact, I think they still do. Although I've never been to Burbank, so maybe they've changed it now. But you would normally have 2 editors in one room. It started off as 2 editors with their own titles. And then as it went along, the 2 editors would be an associate editor and the editor. So who knows, maybe now that they're in California with all that FU Time Warner money, that they've got maybe their own room with a view. But,
hey man, that's good money. I'll take that FU money any day.
Right on. But while I was at the end of Forgotten Realms, and there was not like they were throwing work at me, I still had to ask around. And so he shared the same office as Brian Augustine, who was doing The Flash when Mark Waid was writing it.
Right.
And he had written a title that they had no artist for, so they decided to give me a shot on Black Condor. Here's the funny thing about it. I went to art school and I'm enjoying everything I possibly could up at that point. And the funny thing is about editors, and Brian Augustine looked at me and says, okay, you can do sword and sorcery, but can you draw a car? And I was shocked because as an artist, you're taught to put together shapes to make a thing to make a thing, you know?
Right.
And I looked at him and says, yeah, it's a box with wheels. Which what kind of a question is that?
Right.
You know, I was offended, you know, how dare you, you know? I figured out how to draw a ship poorly, but I did,
Right.
you know? And so I did, they gave me a shot on Black Condor and it worked out, you know, and they liked it. And I wanted to ink. So the first 2 issues I did inks, but I was not as good an inker as I was a penciler in terms of speed,
Okay.
because again, we're talking about production.
Right.
And so after a while, I got off of inks on that, and I had a series of different inkers, one of which was Richard Space. And then I did like 10 issues of that, and then toward the end, Elliot Magan had left, and it was Kim Yale, who was also a writer who was editing, and happened to be John Ostrander's wife.
Yep. She was on Suicide Squad too, right? Believe.
Yeah. So she was doing a lot of that, and she was my editor for a while. Then after she left, Jim Owsley was my editor. Okay. Many people know him now as Christopher Priest. And so he was my editor for the rest of Black Condor. But I was under a continuity contract, and I wanted medical. I had a young family at the time. I was beginning my family, and they would have to take out medical. And whoever was responsible for taking out medical had neglected to. And I was short on Christmas money because I was coming in December to pick up a paycheck. And I figured, it's great. I'll just get a check. I'll have Christmas money. Boom, hit the stores, and I would just get in, you know, slide in under the wire. And I got my check, and it was $7. And I was very shocked and upset. So I was like, well, I says, well, it's the end of the fiscal year, and they hadn't been taking out your medical. So they decided to do it before the end of the fiscal year, which is in December. And I was like, oh, well, that's shot. That was shot. Luckily, I had already been told that a new company was coming along called Valiant, and they were looking for young artists because it's a brand new company, and they only had so much money for page rates, and they couldn't afford the old pros, except for Don Perlin or Barry Windsor Smith, but they were and John and Bob Layton, but they were already part of the structure. They were part of the brass, so their page rate was irrelevant. They were already in the office.
They're big wigs, yeah.
They're the big wigs, right? So I was on my way. I was going to pick up my check at DC, then I was going to go to a Christmas party at Valiant because I was invited to the Christmas party. So that was the plan. And along with me was a double page spread I did of the Valiant characters with Magnus Robot Fighter in the foreground.
Right.
And they had Harbinger, and one of them was a ghostly figure because one of them had died at that time when the big thing was Dead is Dead as the Valiant universe.
Right.
And it had Exo Man of War, and Solar was there, and Shadow Man was in it.
Bloodshot and all those, yeah.
Yeah, probably. So I did like this whole thing just to get familiar with the universe, because at that time I was already disenchanted with DC and everything, and the biggest problem was that I was also doing at the end of my run at DC with Black Condor, was also doing the Mighty Crusaders for Impact,
Mhm,
because
mhm, mhm.
they had just gotten a Carlton line of comics,
Right.
and Brian Augustyn was writing both Black Condor and the Mighty Crusaders,
Mighty Crusaders.
and Brian Augustyn had just a brand new baby girl. So between being a father, editing,
Hmm.
and writing 2 titles, I would never get a script on time. And then I get it to them, and they're like, "Okay, when can you get it done?" And you just handed it to me. I haven't even looked at it. I have no idea how complicated it is. I'm like
Right.
fighting an army. I have no idea.
That's tough.
So that book was constantly hot because of that. Because I had a writer writing 2 titles that I was a part of doing the art on, and neither of them were on time. And then I'd ask for advancements on pages because I'm under contract, right? So I got to pay my bills, and you only get paid for what you do. And if it's not coming in because the writing's late or whatever, it's it
Right.
became a hassle. So I was really disenfranchised at the time, and of course I was going to take it. And the whole bit about the medical being taken out all at once was my last straw, and that was I'm definitely not coming back. I will do whatever they tell me to do at Valiant.
Right.
And so I did this party, and I brought this piece with me, and I was really bummed, you know, because they were just a few blocks away, further down in Manhattan. Um, and and I was like really, and I was pissed, nothing for the kids, And so I got to the party, and I told Bob Layton, because he was, "Hey, what's going on?" And I told him the story, and he was like, "Oh wow, that sucks." I go, "Yeah, no, I'm pissed off, man. It's like you do what you're supposed to do,
Right.
and then this happens." And it says, anyway, listen, I did this piece. It's got all the characters in the Valiant universe. I just wanted to get familiar. What do you think? And he looked at it, and he says, "I'll buy it for you for $400.
Oh wow.
Save Christmas."
Hey, Santa
$400
Claus.
cash. And that became one of the cards, like the Valiant universe, because everything was
Right.
about cards back then.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Valiant had their own collection of
Yep.
cards, and that became a card. So that was the story of that piece, of how it got there. And it was just me just getting familiar with the character and doing my best, and characters, and doing the best with what I could to represent. And then they offered me a Turok, even though at the time I thought it was Orok. Yeah, I was not familiar with the Gold Key comic books that was Alberto Giolitti was, I think, was the artist on
Yeah.
it back in the 60s. Turned out that was actually Jimi Hendrix's favorite comic book, was Turok.
Really?
Yeah. So I was like, "Oh, cool. Well, then that sells me, And there it is. And so that's how I got that gig, and
Nice.
I did 15 issues of Turok altogether there. And then, of course, the comic book industry went up because they killed Superman, and everything was wonderful, and pay raises and blah, 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 blah. I even was able to get an advancement on a house that would go against my royalties. So I
Oh,
wouldn't make
okay.
royalties, but I'd be paying
But
off
you
this
had the money for
advancement
your house.
to get a
Yeah.
house out of the deal. And that got me the down payment. So I was like, yeah, I went into the mortgage, thing. And everything was wonderful for a while. Then they killed Superman, and everyone went nuts. And then that movie exploded. And all the money that people were investing in comic books, because they were so mad at their mother for having thrown out all their comic books as kids, all these #1 issues were basically going to the quarter bin.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then soon after, Valiant was sold to Acclaim, which is the video game people, and they folded. And then after my contract was up, they let me go, and I was unemployed for a year and a half before
Really?
it ended with Owlman at DC, which was fun to get back to DC, because it was I guess they had remembered some of the bad feelings. As if I had anything to do with it. I may have pissed and moaned about it, but I had something to complain. I actually had something legitimate to bitch about. And so, they decided to check out my diva-ness, which of course there was none. It had been squeezed out of me by the speculation boom going down. And then they gave me Turok and various other one issues, a little bit of Bloodshot, a little bit of Archie and Armstrong, Shadow Man, Eternal Warriors. I did a little bit. Did some ancillary licenses like the Sliders, the TV show. I did that comic book.
I remember that comic book. Wow.
Yeah,
I remember that comic book.
So getting back to DC from Valiant was fun. But I toughed it out. I had children to feed, and I was not going to
right.
My it was so bad that my house was foreclosed on, and I had to file for bankruptcy. And I went through a bankruptcy, a foreclosure, and a divorce, all within the same 2-year span.
Oh my God, man! That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Hey, it happens. It's life.
Yeah. So, do you feel? I'm trying to figure out how to word this. It seems like because I know you've done a lot of stuff between that period of coming back to DC and then say it seems like you had a burst of popularity with the Hawkman, then Identity Crisis. It seems like that just literally booted you into the top, into not that you're not an A-list artist, but into that kind of stratosphere of, all right, what's Rags going to work on next? And because you have a very distinctive style, especially with expressions.
Right. Well,
I know
when you're Rockwell, it's so when you're when you're a fan of Norman Rockwell, people in animation became, and also and not just Norman Rockwell and Neil Adams and John Buscema and Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, and for a small time even John Byrne, Michael Golden for sure. All these wonderful artists really inspired me, and some George Perez as well, Vermita, Ross Andrew. I can go on and on.
But you're saying all mine. You're all my. They're all my favorites. I'm just listening.
and also added to it was Mad Magazine, because I used to love the caricaturists of Mort Drucker and Angela Torres.
Yep.
So for a time I thought I might even become a caricature artist, and so
I can see that. Not that I want you to be a caricature artist, but I could see where your style lends itself to that.
Now it makes more sense. Yeah, and I had this revelation. I told them during dinner, and with Dan Jurgens was in the group, and we were discussing influences, and I mentioned, and for a time, Mort Drucker and all that, and he looked at me and he goes, "Oh, now your style makes sense." So,
right.
It's a little bit of a little bit of illustrator. Well, here's the thing, and there are 3 people that I really, really adhere to artistically.
Okay.
And one is the first that really impacted me was Neil Adams. Okay. The next would be Frank Frazetta. Okay. Despite all the other influences, these are the ones that really, really resonated with me. And then it was Michael Golden.
I can, every time you name a name, it just clicks. Especially with your Hawkman run. With your Hawkman run, I get total Frazetta in there, the big burly. Mace and everything. Golden.
That's why
definitely.
I always said he was Conan with wings. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so, and the one common thread between all of that was that there was a sense of caricature in the characters, where they could be malleable. They weren't like Neil Adams, where everything was just so pristine, right? But between Rockwell, Michael Golden, and Frank Frazetta, the one common thread is that there's caricature and a bit of humanity, a little bit of expression, a little bit of animation, squash and stretch kind of thing, where it's not just like Alex Raymond or Hal Foster, where it's just super heroic. There was more gesture.
Yeah, especially
and that added with a consistent light source to make it real. So if you have a consistent light source, it's going to look realistic, and then you have caricature to it. So that's where my style basically evolved into. So it lends a little bit into the caricaturists, a little bit into illustrators, and a little bit into just regular old comic book. So yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, especially because I read excuse me, Identity Crisis like
Mhm.
often. I like to study artists. I it's my thing because I'm trying to get better. And one of the things that I study is I try to do different facial expressions.
Mhm.
Like I need to be able to, I want people to be able to read what my character's thinking just by looking at their face. And one of the things that you did in Identity Crisis that was like, which really made the story click to me at least, because it was such an emotional foundation and undercurrent to the story, is the fact that every character, like I could take the thought balloons and the word balloons and everything away, and I knew what they were feeling and thinking at the time without even reading it. And in like it just lends so much to it, to the
Yeah.
story. Because you could have put, I don't want to use an artist, I don't want to discredit, I don't want to, but you could put another artist who isn't as great with
Mhm.
facial expressions on Identity Crisis, and it would have been a good story. I don't any it would have been okay. But the fact that actually, and Chad, I have a favorite panel. Chad, I don't know if you see it, but there's so much like going on with it. I can find it real quick. I can find it, Chad. Hopefully it's there. Hopefully it came through. Otherwise, I'm going to be really upset. They didn't show it. But this is part of my one of the favorite, is like just the look on Batman's face right there,
Yeah.
and on Robin's face. Like those, it like sticks with you more than just, you know, anger or, shock. Like there's panic. It's
Mhm.
subtleties to it. And I know I'm fawning right now, and I'm apologizing beforehand. Uh but there's like a genuine human element to it, instead of with a lot of comic books, especially superhero comics, is like four expressions. There's happy,
Mhm.
sad, angry,
And monopoly.
distraught. Yeah, it's just like four. Whereas like,
Yeah.
and I know there's a lot of artists that do this. I always go to Kevin McGuire. I
Mhm.
love looking at his stuff and his facial expressions, and okay, oh, so that's, yeah, like that's
Yeah.
one
He's
of the
very.
reasons. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm always gravitated to your artwork.
Mhm.
Is it doesn't necessarily need to be realistic, but it definitely needs to be expressive and intense and textured.
Yeah.
Just my
Right.
my point of view, of course.
Well, and you know, like I said, sometimes things line up, right? You don't know if there's a God, but things happen for a reason, I
Right.
suppose. Um, when I was off of my run, you see, coming because of the everything I had dealt with the bankruptcy and the divorce and the foreclosure. Um, and believe me, when I write this book, wow, there's a lot of things I'm not talking about.
Right, right,
But
right.
but you come out of that hungrier, right? The people of the Depression era are hard
Right.
working for a reason, because they suffered, they know the low, and they don't want to go back there. So
Yeah.
I did 20 issues of Hawkman, of Our Man,
Right,
prior to
right,
doing
right.
Hawkman. And because Our Man was kind of like floating around the universe, I told Tom Peyer, who's the writer, I says, listen, I don't know where this book is going, but if we're gonna write the universe, please, I have something to prove, because the last I heard about whether or not I can handle superheroes is whether or not I could draw a car. So, I have, they don't know anything about it until you actually show it to them. And at the
Right.
very end of the hour of the Hawk Hour, uh, Black Condor run, there was a team up with Batman, so I got to do Batman, and that raised some eyebrows. All of a sudden, they could see that, oh, I can do comic book characters, you know. And he
Right.
doesn't just have this odd, goofy style. He can actually he's got more um, variety, you know, more tools in his tool belt. So when I got with Tom, I says, listen, you know, whatever you do, let's do as many as possible. You know, so I got
Right.
Hour Man because I was able to do an Infinite Crisis it was a one-off featuring the Flash, and it had some JLA members in it. You know, so I got a little work into that. So anytime he could just like tap into the universe, you know. So I had JSA and I had JLA characters, and I had past characters and villains and everything. So he gave me a whole playground to really just dive into, and I was able to prove to people that yeah, oh yeah, you can give me a regular title. You know,
Right.
I'm not just sword and sorcery. I'm not just this odd character like Black Condor artist, you know, or just
Right.
you know, you know. Turok, you know, something off to the side. It's not really a superhero, you know.
Right. Right.
So getting that opportunity was wonderful because that gave me Hawkman. Because when they needed an artist and nothing was available, Peter Tomasi hired me to do Hawkman, and I did 21 issues of Hawkman, and it was a good long run. So I had two back-to-back runs, 41 issues between the two titles.
Right.
And I basically was like the main artist for both for the entire run. Because shortly after that, just like with Black Condor, when I left it, they canceled the title. When I was moving on from Hour Man, they decided, you know, I guess we've done everything we were going to do with this character, you know.
Right.
Jeff Johns and I had the longest run of any Hawkman title in the history of Hawkman.
Really?
21 issues. Prior to that, I think was 15 with Joe Kubert. So we were able to really get a long run on these things. So between the those long runs and the fact that Identity Crisis came along, they needed an artist who could handle it quickly. It was actually between me and Ethan Van Sciver. And I
Really?
would have gotten initially they were going to give me Rebirth, and Van Sciver was going to get Identity Crisis. But because Identity Crisis was coming out first, and I was the faster artist at the time of the two, they decided to give it to me. And Peter Tomasi really, because I mean, Barry Kitson, I think, was one of the artists' names that they kept banding about. I know Brad Meltzer, you know, had mentioned him, and I was kind of like a dark horse. Just like I was a dark horse in every title I've had up to that.
Right. Right.
You know, I was used to people not expecting much from me and surprising people. But Peter Tomasi really did push for me because the work I did in Hawkman, a lot of what I did was subtle. There was subtleties involved, subtle gestures, and there were little things going on between the characters. I always reference this one particular scene at the end of the Hawkman run. We did something called Black Rain, which was a crossover between JSA and Hawkman.
Yep. Yep.
And in this particular, this is the beginning of them promoting Identity Crisis. Every title had something of an identity crisis, and they kept like talking the identity crisis, identity crisis, identity crisis. And Hawkman had his own identity crisis where he didn't know which Hawkman he was because he had gone through so many helmets. And
Right.
and this particular one, he was going to take over the JSA as chairman, and he installed himself as chairman. And he came in after like just going off in this bloodbath of just like tearing down all these villains, and so he decides, and so we cut scene to where the JSA are having this annual dinner, and it's in a restaurant. You know, it's a high, you know, 5-star restaurant, and Hawkman comes in all like full of shards of glass and bloodied and just like, you know, sweaty and just this stinking mess of a Hulk kind of like, you know, barbarian come walking in, and they're trying to be in their ties and their little dresses and the little things with the little, you know, the bling and the thing and all that. And so he comes in and he kind of crashes the party. of course, Kendra, or Hawk Girl, was part of the party. She had her little dress on and her pearly earrings and all that.
Right.
And he comes in and everybody like turns around and is shocked. And there's this one scene where everybody's just looking at him. And Kendra is in the center. It is Hawkman title. So, of course, she's in the center. And, of course, you had Captain Shazam. You had Jay Garrick. You had Our Man Jr., Rick Tyler. All of them. And so Kendra's just like this. He's like, oh, Jesus Christ. Oh.
I'm actually, I have that book. I have that book right in front of me. I actually want to go look and see now.
Look at that scene. And
Hold on.
I'm going to
go take a look.
Go ahead. Good. Hurry up.
Oh, I'm sure it's nearby.
Black Rain.
I am sure it's nearby.
There you go.
Here we go. My collection's pretty close. I got a ton of them.
That's Black Rain, right?
This is the entire collected run of yours.
Okay.
You and Jeff.
All right.
So I got the whole thing.
Okay.
I just have to go find it.
It's at the end of
you were the hold on.
I think it's the end of issue 23.
There it is. Hold on. I'm gonna make sure. Let me see if I can. There it is.
There it is.
There it is.
Okay.
There it is.
Now look at the characters. All right, you got Dr. Fate there, right?
There we go.
What are they doing? What are all of them doing? Where are they looking?
Finger.
Glancing at her or at front.
They're all looking forward.
Right.
Who's not looking forward?
Except for wait, where's my finger? There she is. Over there.
Yeah.
The girl, Star Girl.
Blonde girl's cutting her eyes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
She's worried about her. Right?
Because they're best friends.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the kind of subtlety that I was really good at, because that's the way I think. I think the scene through, right? So to me, this guy's coming in, he's all bloody, he's all this, he's that. Kendra's like, rubbing her eye like, this is embarrassing. And because she's reacting that way, her girlfriend, her best friend, is concerned about her girlfriend's feelings. So she's not looking at Hawkman. She's looking at Kendra.
Right.
Because that's what friends do, right?
Right.
That's what friends do. We check each other's temperature, right?
Right.
So that's
character sense.
That's the kind of thing that got me Identity Crisis.
Yeah.
Which I think that, and the way I handled Shadow Thief, because in the beginning, around issue 3, Shadow Thief became a part. They went to India, and he was just doing what Shadow Thief does. And there was this way of handling Shadow Thief in the old days where they would kind of like make him pop out, and he was separate from the Shadow, even though he's a Shadow. He's a walking shadow, but somehow separate of the Shadow. And that's old school thinking. The way I handled Shadow Thief is that I had him in the shadows, and he would come out of the shadow. He would just like be this head popping out of a shadow. So you would just see nothing but his head and his neck, because then be up against a blank wall, and then the shadow, he'd be like so he'd be the Shadow in his head, and you wouldn't get a good view of his eyes. I'd make all this dark around here, maybe a little couple of like highlights of what eyes would be, and his face would be in shadow. So that's how I handled Shadow Thief, and that sold Brad Meltzer on me. Really? He liked that. Yeah. So he said, like, okay, honestly, this is a thinking artist. Huh?
That's just amazing. I mean, it's amazing to think that Van Sciver would have, because I can't see him doing in Identity Crisis. Like, his style doesn't lend, in my opinion, to, regardless of what we think of him, his style doesn't lend to what I believe that a story that's not really built on superheroics. Yeah.
His style it lends more to the old heroic fantasies. Right. His style would be closer to
he's closer to a Jim Lee than dude.
No, like a Hal Foster. Okay. More posed, more, 50s influence kind of thing, which is fine. I mean, I love that stuff too.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It works for.
Hang on a second. I'll be right back.
It's all right.
Hang on.
You know,
I'm trying to look at his artwork in the back.
I figured you'd be looking at that. I'm wishing someone like him would have been on hand to talk to the DC TV show folks when they make character choices.
They do okay. They do all right.
Some of them.
They
you
do.
You know there have been some. What have we always complained about?
I haven't. I only watched one of those. CW
when we were
I only
both
watched
actively
one.
watching, what did we always complain about?
They're run by a church. Who knows? I know. It's a very conservative network, and they're going to have conservative people editing things. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm in the basement. My studio is my basement.
No worries. I just have my
and there's a furnace here.
I just have my 3-year-old son running through half naked, like 20 minutes ago. So we do the best we can. So
yes, we do.
Let me see. This might be the answer for one might be the answer for both of these questions. So I'll ask them first. Both. What's your all-time favorite project, and what's your favorite character to draw?
Oh, okay. You know, everything you do is work. So you don't have a geeky approach, if that makes any sense. By the time I had got done with Identity Crisis, I already established myself as an artist who can handle superheroes. So any idea of a superhero that I had growing up has basically been expressed. You know, if I like the way somebody would handle a character, I try to emulate that and then take it further. So the idea of being like this geeky little fan, you know, there's this one meme that's on the internet that cracks me up, where it's like this little kid, he's got pizza all over the place, and he's saying he's got a comic book. He goes, I want to be a comic book artist, you know, when I grow up. Then fast forward, he's a comic book artist. His back is broken forward. He's got dim light, and he looks at me and he goes, I want to die. So that's what it's like. You know, the worst thing you could do to your hobby is turn it to a career. It's no longer yours, you know. It's under different scrutiny at that point, and you have to keep everyone else happy, and you're not necessarily doing a character that you think is your strength. So having said all that, any project I've ever gotten into was never about me, you know, just getting off my geek. You know, it was just me just saying, okay, this is the job now. Let's try to do a good job with it. So, but in retrospect, there's some fondness to Our Man, you know, because it was so well written. It was such an interesting thing. It was so off the wall and not really your common, you know, headquarters, you know, bad guy headquarters. Let's fight. We're gonna fight each other first, and then we fight the bad guys. That kind of shit. It was more quirky and more fun. So I really enjoyed that, but only in retrospect. So remember, I did 20 issues, and that was a lot. That's a hard haul, you know. And you're talking 10-hour days, 14-hour days, every day. You know, we don't have weekends off. I can't tell you how many times I missed Christmas visiting family because I was meeting the deadline. I took one vacation in my entire career, one vacation to Disney World, that I could only stick around for a couple of days. Then I had to fly back because I had a deadline.
Really?
Wow. That's the way it is. That's the way this industry is. So, so I left my then wife and you know, kids behind. And they were there with their grandparents, and you know, and you know, that was, you know, my then wife's mother, parents. So they were cool. You know, they had a good time without me, and I came home and I just worked. So that's the kind of gig it is, and it's only because I could be like the kind of artist that has just got a very stylized, simple illustration style that doesn't delve into nuance, it doesn't delve into light source, who doesn't try to do what the EC artists of the 50s did. And I could have made a good living with that. I probably could have made more money, but I was never motivated by money. I'm still not
Mm-hmm.
motivated by money. I'm motivated by respect. And that's all I was ever going for. And I guess, when you're only Puerto Rican kid in an all white neighborhood where everybody's got a German last name or an Italian last name,
Mm.
then you're gonna run into that kind of you're gonna have that kind of inspiration.
Right.
And so, but I guess I have a fondness for Our Man, um, probably because it's more deeper to my roots because my father's a Spaniard, straight up Spaniard, which is in Puerto Rico. A lot of people don't realize that it's not just the brown guy. It's like a million of them on an island that just barely speaks English, has a thick accent. That kind of bullshit.
Okay.
You have just like it is in America. You have European Spaniards who are very white, who are very European background, and it used to be a bad thing to mix with the Indios.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my father's side. On my mother's side, though, you have the Boricua Indian. You have, and if you know anything about the Caribbean, it's always a mixture of all the Indians in the area
Mm-hmm.
because of the
Mm-hmm.
Aztecs who would raid the islands to build their empire. They would rape the
Right.
women and just bring over people, and that's how an empire gets built. Back in the old days, you have to rape
Right.
for it. You have to sit there and destroy other colors. So Comanche, Apache, Aztec, all of that's in there.
Okay.
And so for me, spiritually, Turok was always the better title. And as a kid, I used to watch, Clayton Moore and Jay Silverheels, on Lone Ranger and Tonto. And I was just
Ooh.
like, Lone Ranger looks cool. He looks slick in that nice, perfectly pressed outfit, and they get that white hat with the mask and a red scarf and the light blue leotards. No, they were basically a leotard, you know. And then the boots that's badass. But
Right.
Tonto, was my boy. I love him, So
Right.
that's always more fascinating. I remember the first thing I ever did. My mother got me Junior Britannica encyclopedia, which she needed, for school
Right.
projects.
Right.
So I have something to research. Okay, good, terrific. But the first time I did a deep dive into anything that just was inspired by me was learning all I could about Indians, Native
Mm-hmm.
Americans. In fact, I have a whole section on my wall here of just Native American books. Um, so for me, that was the thing. So Turok is probably is one A would be Our Man, but my favorite character to draw, and if there was a time for me to be a geeky kid, would probably be Captain Marvel. Would Shazam, Captain Marvel. The original
Really?
costume before they started doing all kinds of crazy shit with lines. Because it was such a
Yeah.
great costume. It's
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
time I look at it, it's just what it works. It works in any era. It's like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Don't change it.
That's how I feel about the
Okay.
Flash.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like the
You know.
Flash's costume at its simplest is pure, it's streamlined, and every
Yep.
time the more not modern, but as time has gone on, they just keep adding more and more things to it that
Yeah.
seem to go against the premise, which is a runner. Like you don't
Mm-hmm.
put armor on a runner,
The
like
movie, all that crap looks like you ran into a satellite dish.
yeah, like I'm just like, why is he wearing armor?
Yeah.
He's supposed to be
Yeah.
fast, like that
Yeah.
costume to me, and I love Jim Lee, so and I can't shine Jim Lee's boots, but the design of having all the stitching or I just thought it made something that was pure and simple more complex, but
More
not
is
in a
more.
good way.
More is more. And there's the reason why the term less is more is actually a poignant thing to think to say. Um, more less is more is that when you learn to do a craft, you learn how to do everything about that craft. And then as you become better at it, you start pulling away all the ancillary fat. You're trimming the fat as you go along. And
Right.
so by the time you become a master of it, brevity is the goal. The
Right.
final, which is in the abstract. Okay, and the abstract is simplification. Um, so to get to that final level, it's all about peeling away everything that's just become unnecessary and getting to the point. One line represents a thing as opposed to what used to be 10 lines representing the same thing. In comic books, it's the opposite point of view. It's always more is more, which is why
Unless you're
Superman
Alex
became
Toth.
so ridiculous. Yeah,
Unless you're Alex
Superman became
Toth.
so ridiculous over time because the villain had to be as powerful as Superman. So here's Superman, then the villain goes on top, and then the Superman goes on top, and before you know it, he's pushing the Earth back into orbit, which is stupid. The dumbest damn thing I've ever seen was a man just who's not supposed to fly, by the way. He's only supposed to be leaping, but then they made fly this thing out of it, and all of a sudden he can fly the Earth back and spin it backwards or push it back into orbit. When you're that powerful, there's nothing left to say. So when we did 52, we dummied him down,
Right.
Brought him back to basics to what he used to be, and that's what made it work. So we made less is more instead of more is more, and so that was the whole point of art. Whereas in comic books, again, they have to have more, because that's money, talking about a thing. And it's no longer about art. It's all about how much more interest they can get, how much more revenue they can produce for it. And that's the reason why it becomes that way. So whenever something is new, generally speaking, is always just a giant regurgitation of more on top of it. And there's no peeling things back until they've gotten to the point where they can't do anything else with it. Then they go back to basics, and all of a sudden, oh, remember how great it used to be? Well, that's the whole point of it. It should have been that way in the first place.
Yeah.
Remember the thing?
The thing.
No, like literally, like, hey, remember the thing? You liked the thing before, so now we're going to bring it back to the thing that you liked.
Yeah, right on. Okay.
It's kind of like the conversation we had previously about diversity in comic books, and I made the point that I'm very jaded by comics in the sense that I've seen this cycle of, hey, let's make Iron Man black and Captain America a woman or something, like whatever, but like it always happens, and then sales get a little bump, and then the sales go down, and then, hey, remember Steve Rogers and remember Tony Stark, and then they come back, and then those characters that they created, and they fade to the background. And I've and that we kind of did, that's where the whole hey, remember this thing here, it just brought me back to that, because right now we're in the middle of diversity, a lot of diversity. We're seeing Miss Marvel is now, I want to say Pakistani, but I might be wrong.
She's brown,
but then you also have Sam Wilson becoming Captain America, and I'm like, hey, that's great. And as a black man, I'm kind of happy to see it, but as somebody who's read comics for 20, 30 plus years, I remember when Rhodey was Iron Man, and then he wasn't, and then he went back to being a sidekick, and then it became Tony's thing again, and then right on cue, Sam goes away, goes back to being Falcon. Steve is back, and now I know they're trying to do both because of the the MCU stuff, but it's tough because it makes me jaded, and I want to stay in the moment and enjoy it, but I can't, because all I can think about is say what.
That's the Comics Gate voice popping in behind your head.
I know.
The status quo must eventually can
it's true though. It's true. It's true. There's a significant degree of truth there.
We want organic change. We don't want forced change.
I don't
We
mind
don't.
change. I'm afraid of what's going to happen to the characters. Like Miles Morales. Like I enjoyed watching, I enjoyed Into the Spider-Verse. I truly did. But I'm so worried about what happens when people get tired of Miles Morales.
I
And they
think
want
he's
Peter.
kind of transcended. He's the exception.
He might be the exception, but it's also a matter of like, who knows when Marvel goes, hey, let's put our muscle behind Peter is Spider-Man, and then eventually they're gonna change his name. Like I know it's gonna happen. He's not gonna be Spider-Man. They're gonna change his name to something else.
Always his name is Miles Morales.
No. But what I'm saying is he'll be the Scarlet Spider or something like that, and.
Sure. That's the other way they can get away with it, and that's what they do. See, here's the thing about comics: they've always been topical. It's always been about what's going on. I remember when Ebola came out, and there was all kinds of there was all this thing about contagious diseases. When AIDS came out, there was a thing about AIDS. When World War II came out, was a thing. When McCarthyism came out, the atomic came out, and that changed comics as well as the Comics Code Authority. Change is going to happen because Pulp Fiction is the only thing that we do with comic books, and the only way to keep it fresh is to keep it topical. What would he do? What would Superman do now if he had to fly over Ukraine with no fly zone? That kind of thing. It's always been that way. So on one hand, I like the diversity if it's talking about what's happening now.
Yeah.
Okay. And I get you because it's only going to get. We're concerned about the backlash, when things are forced. When we're forced to have to deal with a gay character or a black character or a female character in the traditionally male white Christian role, and that's going to be an issue for some people, because change is never something that's. I mean, change is going to happen if you collapse under the weight of it, because that's what happened to every. The Egyptians stuck around for 3,000 years, though nothing was ever going to change until it did.
Yeah.
So that's something we have to get used to. But that's a thing, another thing entirely. What works in the DC universe is something that never really worked in most of Marvel's universe. Marvel never really did much with a sidekick.
Yeah.
Maybe Bucky. Bucky was a sidekick.
And they killed him.
Can't recall. Maybe a younger brother, like a younger kid brother, like Johnny Storm would be something. And what DC can do is make these changes, okay, that work, because that character has always been part of the mythos. And the mythology of the character isn't necessarily the person who becomes it, even though that's really important in storytelling. What happens is that the character's mantle becomes bigger than the character himself. All of a sudden, Batman is more important than Bruce Wayne, which is why you rarely see anything about Bruce Wayne anymore. We kind of talked about this in Hawkman as well. Where he had a villain called Headhunter, and he said, your disguise is the clothing you wear on a daily basis. Who you really are is that you're this freak who runs around and smashes shit with a mace. So with DC, it's okay to have Robin grow into Nightwing and then become Batman for a time, because now he's handling the mantle. The mantle will never die. Like an idea, it never dies. And the characters change behind it. So that works. It is more organic,
Headhunter.
Right. If Donna Troy became a Wonder Woman, I don't know that she did. She probably has by now.
No, she did.
That makes more sense.
Got that book too.
There you go.
But
right.
I mean,
so
but that's what I'm saying. Like for me, but that's what I'm saying. Like for me, I'm okay with change, but I'm not okay with the characters fading to the background when the topical nature of them
falls out of style.
But that's my only hang up, and it's always been my only hang up. And it's so hard for me to attach to a a legacy type character like that. It's mostly for Marvel. DC, like you made the point about, DC's made a living off this. There's like 8 Flashes and like 4, there's a million Green Lanterns, and so it's like,
yeah, because most other titles suck and they become team books, and then because they can't survive on their own. I mean, the whole invention of a team book, came because they couldn't have individual sales of the titles of the individual characters do well, so they became a team. All of a sudden, it started selling, so that that's why that works. Yeah, and we're kind of beating a dead horse now, but it's if Lois Lane wants to become black for 24 hours, which she did, is because, and it was a topical thing in the 70s, because we started realizing that, wait a minute, these people are getting shit on. Maybe we do have privilege that we don't know about because we've never been exposed to anything else but. So the curiosity comes through, and I get as a journalist, you want to know the truth of things, right? So it would make more sense, but at the same time, it is kind of like, well, then why now? Why? Because it's on the news. It's because that's what the people are talking about. Why didn't we talk about Ebola or any other kind of virus, before it happened, or it's not like diseases are new or pandemics are new. They've had before. But that's what grabs the attention of the audience, and the audience is still what you're trying to grab when you're trying to sell the publication.
Yeah.
It's just money making all the decisions, and sometimes money makes no sense. Now, Sam Wilson becoming Captain America makes absolute sense because he was the Falcon. He knows everything about Steve Rogers and the way he moved and how he ran the organization, so to speak.
Right.
The franchise was already established for Sam, so it was easy. That makes more sense. But all of a sudden, Miles Morales is going to rub people wrong because Peter was so fucking popular. So why ruin a good thing? So Miles Morales is going to rub people the wrong way unless you put him into a Spider-Man of a different universe. And damn well that's what's coming up next. They already had the 3 Spider-Mans in the latest movie, so Miles
they got to bring him in.
Right.
They'll get used to it. Miles is coming.
Right. Yeah. It's like almost 10 o'clock on the East Coast. And I don't want to keep you forever, even though I do want to keep you forever and keep talking. We'll definitely have to do this again. We'll definitely do this again. So I'm on another podcast, and that podcast name is Top 5 Live. And every week we get together and we pick a topic, and we'll do like top 5 best comedies, movies, and they will all come up with our list, and we'll basically berate each other in an entertaining, the debate. But I don't do that on my show. But I am interested in hearing people's top 5 version of whatever topic I come off the blue. So before we leave, I'm going to ask you, what is your top 5 favorite comic book artist storytellers? Like, not including yourself, of course.
Not including that would never even be in the top 5.
Include yourself. Do it.
I know it's a tough
Eisner.
one. Okay, all right.
Will Eisner. Although I don't think he's a good enough artist, and he's a good artist. I'm not saying he's a terrible artist, but I think his storytelling is better than his art. Is be Frank Miller.
Okay.
I've heard he wasn't a good storyteller, but I beg to differ. But what Frank Frazetta did with Johnny Comet, the characterization, how he was able to go from a romance into a comedy, back and forth flawlessly and do it beautifully. I would cite that. I want to say Neil Adams, but he was always about pushing the envelope to the point of almost ridiculousness. it got to the point where, from my view, it was just I'd have to pay too much attention to design aspects that I learned to appreciate as an artist, studying the art form, versus someone who just reads a book and says, "Oh wait, where am I going? What panel am I going to now?" And not knowing I was supposed to follow the action, into the next panel that would make no sense otherwise. But I will say Jack Kirby,
Okay.
because he did more and kept the panels the same size primarily. That's a very difficult thing to do. But he mastered that. And I think I became pretty good at it because my approach was going backwards before I came to Jack Kirby's point of view. So I didn't start off doing it like that. I went all over the place and came back to it. And knowing everything that I learned along the way made my coming back to point one stronger. So I thought Jack Kirby. So let's see, we got Eisner, we got Miller, we got Kirby, we got Frazetta, and for the fifth one, I would say Joe Kubert. Joe Kubert was a master of composition, design, pace, and simplification. He did some things that were complicated looking, some things that were like so beautiful in their brevity and just their succinct. That's what it is. Just bam, and that's what I'm talking about when I say the abstract is the final level. Less is more is Joe Kubert. So I would probably put Kubert in my top 5.
So mine is, and I never include my guest, even though you are one of my favorites. I got George Perez. I feel George Perez does a lot of the things that you talked about today, like the Hawkman, the Hawkman panel with the eye.
Right.
He does a lot of that. Like if you look in every panel, everyone has a different expression or different reaction or whatever. But I don't need words to read George's stories. I can just read them. Mark Bagley is very underrated to me as a storyteller. It's very clean artwork, but it's dynamic. He can go crazy, but he can also rein it in. And once again, his expressions are amazing. I'm going to butcher this guy's last name, and I apologize. But Stuart Immonen. He, number one, the fact that there are a legion of people copying him right now. There are so many clones of his out there. To me, it means a lot. And once again, clean. I like clean art. Cluttered art, and when I say cluttered, I don't mean detailed. I mean cluttered as in like sometimes I don't know what's happening. Like I'm trying to keep up, but I can't. I just need to be able to figure out what's happening. That's 3. John Romita Sr. Definitely a master at what he does. I can't say enough about John. John's one of the best. And then I have Neil Adams. Because I thought like everything Neil does is so much like power. But I don't find myself that confused. Like I know you talked about there's a bit of a, but as a draftsman, I feel like every one of his page like flows. They're all flowing in a direction. And so even if it's dynamic, yeah, like even if it's a dynamic, I know where he's going. I know where the story's going. I can follow through. There's no like confusion. So those are my 5. I can put a lot of other people in. That's why this show is so difficult to do. That's why it's really.
He did change the rules, and he did change some of the rules, and that gave birth to a lot of other things that eventually had to come back to center. But,
right. I could have put Alex Ross too. Alex Ross is an amazing artist and just a great storyteller.
Yep.
Jamari, were you able to do it, or is that too much? Is that too deep? Is that too deep state
you
for you?
All have you guys are on a whole new level. It's like when I'm talking with my brother, the musician. He can see things with music. I can talk with him all day, but today is me getting a master class in the art form from the both of you.
Oh, please. It's a masterclass for me. Both of us. I'm listening here. I've been listening more than I'm talking right now.
That is what I've loved about doing this so much is, every time we get another guest and I'm learning every time. And once again, this was so enlightening on so many levels. So it's like once again, it makes me curious. I'm going to be going through digging crates. I'm going to be texting you later, like, yo, what was that issue he was talking about?
I got most of the stuff he talked about. I got some of his Nightwing. I definitely got your Action Run. I had a Turok somewhere. I got in my singles. I've transitioned to trades now. Because I don't have the space for the singles anymore, and I don't feel it. I like to get complete stories. So, now they're doing all these runs where it's like all of Rags Morales Hawkman. Okay, cool. I'll buy those two, and now I got them, and I can just pull them out and then read them at any given point.
I have to I have to do a couple of different things now, because not only do I have to keep my own personal ones, but now, because I deal with the kids that I deal with, I have to now figure out, okay, how am I going to get a second copy in my classroom? So, and that's whenever we get these new budgets that come in, and they're like, whoa, what are you going to do for literacy? Literacy. Well, here's a list of things, some graphic novels that I need for my classroom.
So I want to,
there's
go ahead.
In Phillipsburg, New Jersey, they have in their high school, the Peabury High School, they have their own comic book club. And in this high school, every May, I can't go again this year because my agent has me flying. But anyway, every May, and I think it's every second May or every second week in May, they have a Comic-Con in a high school. Oh, nice. And they would generally have me. They would, if I'm available, then they'll have they've had Lee Weeks.
Cool.
They've had Walt
Lee Weeks is awesome, by the way.
Yeah. Walt Simonson has shown up.
He's awesome too.
And God, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank.
It's funny that you mentioned that. It's funny you mentioned that I just threw a convention at a high school this past weekend. It was the first chance I got. We had an author come in. We had an artist come in. I've had a comic book shop come in. We had panels. The kids put together their own panels for this. And so the school didn't know what to expect. So I'm planning on trying to make this a thing next year where I do get to bring people like yourself in and they can speak, because I have those kids. I buy the sketch pads for some of them. They're so into it, and they're doing their own characters. They're showing stuff. They're asking opinions, and I'm getting ready. I got an idea from our last guest with sketch battles. So that's what I do. I run a club like that, and I do that thing with those kids.
Right on. Yeah, that's cool, man. That's awesome. We need more of that. We do, because because I do these shows now, and they've evolved to Celebrity Con, even though they advertise it as a Comic-Con. And it's always people that are doing comic book movies or comic book TV shows or that kind of thing, or some sort of pop, thing. You could always, I was in Dubai when I ran into Jason Momoa, because he was there to, promote his JLA work. So Don Perlman,
So we get those guys a lot, and people's connection to comic books now, when they go to a Comic-Con, is usually like adults bringing children who don't read the books. They can't tell you who the artist is on the Hulk. They can't tell you that, because when I was a kid, Saturday morning cartoons and comic books was the main inspiration for everything that we did. It was the main source of entertainment. There wasn't a lot of TV movies or movies of superheroes, but now they're so well done because of computer graphics, and because that makes it so much. They do so much planning ahead of time that everything's in trilogies. So there's always some constant influx of comic book entertainment in movie form, but that these people don't read comics or the comic book. So when I show up and I'm doing a show, people rarely, I have a 33-year career, so people rarely know what I've done. And I have to say, yes, I've won a couple awards, I never won an Eisner, but I have a Wizard Fan Award. I won a Diamond Distribution Award. I did all the major characters. I was mentioned in Wonder Woman 1984 in the special thanks box. I'm in there. And these are the things I have to say that resonate with people. You can impress people with your credentials if you've been in the Wonder Woman. Otherwise, they look at your stuff and they go, "Did you do all this? Oh, you're so talented," and then they walk away.
Yep.
They don't engage. They don't ask questions. They don't know what's going on.
Yep.
That is why I'm trying to keep the comics in my classroom, so that when it does come up, I have those things in place, and I learn from it as well.
Yeah. So that's cool, man. Yeah, more power to you. I hope you continue to do that. It's great. Yep.
Now, Rags, are you going to be at Fan Expo in Boston this year?
It's wherever my agent go. What month is that?
I want to say June. I think it's June or July.
Normally they don't bring you by in back-to-back years.
Oh, okay.
They like to let it go a little bit and then bring you back, which is probably better because seeing the same 5 people answering the same questions, saying the same things are kind of tiresome after a while. Oh, is that the little one?
Say hi.
What's up, young fella? Oh, look at that smile.
See, this is
you're pretty.
See, this is my son. Say hi to everybody, Javon.
Hi, everybody.
All right.
This is my alarm telling me that I need to get up. Do you like comic books?
Yes, I do.
Who's your favorite superhero?
Wonder Woman.
When did this happen?
That was different.
When did this happen?
It used to be Batman, right?
He can't hear. You like Batman?
Yes, I like Wonder Woman.
You like Wonder Woman?
Yeah.
That's fine. You like
That's so
Spider-Man?
me and my dad, we used to watch Linda Carter for different reasons.
So,
okay, all right.
My co-teacher, she's in the room with me. I've plastered my room, and her love Linda Carter Wonder Woman, so I had to find a Linda Carter Wonder Woman poster to go up. If I can find a bust or cutout, it will probably make her day. It works out well to have 2 people in the same room that vibe on the same planet. Like, for my birthday, she got me a bust of T'Challa. Like a small one about this size. She ordered it, and then she sent me. She's like, "Happy birthday," and sent me the order form. I was like, "Okay, well, I got to make more room for it." So,
well, hopefully I can. Hopefully I can see you at one of the Comic Cons. I'm going to be doing a fan. I'm trying to do Fan Expo Boston, Terrificon.
Yeah, I was just in Hartford last weekend.
Really?
I did the 90s con.
Oh, I didn't even know about this. I hadn't even heard about it until during the weekend. And they're like, "Oh yeah, there's a 90s con here." And I'm just like, I'm in Hartford. I'm basically Hartford adjacent. I wish I had known. I would have definitely come by and say hi.
It's all just 90s pop. So they had TLC there, and they had the Backstreet Boys, and
yeah, I'd heard. I would have gone. I didn't even know about it. It was like somebody on Facebook was like, "Hey, I'm at 90s Con." I'm like, "What is 90s Con?"
I saw interviews coming out of it.
Yeah,
That's how I knew it was happening.
Maybe I would have tried it next time, but hopefully I get to see you at one of these cons. I will definitely.
They may bring me back next year, so we'll suck.
Which one?
I gave them some suggestions because they're trying to expand a bit into the comic book aspect of it.
Really? Okay. I'll definitely try it then. I mean,
this year they had 6 artists. I was one of them, and so they were asking me a lot of questions like, do you have any suggestions? I said, well, first you should probably change the name instead of 90s Con to 90s Pop and Comic Con.
Probably.
And that would make more sense, and then you would get the ears of the people who were like, "Oh, there's a Comic-Con in the area,"
Yeah, feel free to slide on my name. Feel free. They don't have to fly me out or anything. I can drive. It's a 10-minute drive.
There you go.
Thank you for
that's rich.
Yeah, thank you for coming on my show, man. I really do appreciate it, and we're definitely going to work it out so we can come on again. Because I'm pretty sure I've got like 15, 20 questions I never even reached because we were so into what we actually talked about. And once again, I do appreciate you. And once again, I'm going to say this before we go. I appreciate the fact that you treated me like you know me forever. Like from the minute we've met, it was like, hey, come sit down right here and I'm going to show you how to draw. And I appreciated that. But you never talked down to me while you were helping me. Well, hey, listen, there are a lot of, people who are, they have a different sense of who they are. I'm not calling people out, but the way they interact with you, because you might not be at a certain level within the industry. And I was a baby. That was my first Comic-Con, I believe, that I had ever done. Now I'm like 4 or 5 in now, so I'm a little more, I know a little bit more, but you've always been, more than cordial with me, and especially allowing me to sit with you and Jim Shooter is still a highlight of my Comic-Con career. So once
get
again,
me drinking, I'll let you do anything.
Hey, listen, man, I told you we're gonna work it out. We're gonna have it. We're gonna work it out next time. I'll try and keep up with your schedule and see where you are, and hopefully somewhere along the line we cross. But yes, thank you.
Follow me, man. Just follow me on my website. I will tell you where I'm going.
Hold on. Let me make sure everybody can see it. I've been posting every now and again. Rags Against the Machine. .net.
That's my Tumblr. There's also, you can find me on Instagram, Rags and Hashtags. Even it's just mostly it's just a lot of teasing stuff trying to get you to the website.
Okay.
And
I
on
get
Facebook,
that.
Facebook, there's Rags Morales art page too. So I'm not hard to find.
Also, love that you're a Rage Against the Machine fan.
What's that?
Clearly, you're a Rage Against the Machine fan. I noticed that. I remember the Zach De La Rocha, the Zach De La Rocha comment you made earlier.
Right on. Yeah, fears your only God. Right. So you know what? There's top 5, right? Top 5 forms of music. Okay. I like blues. I like rap. I like funk, and I like rock. And you put them together, and that's basically Rage Against the Machine.
You are not
and they're political.
You are not wrong. It fits. From what I know of you now, that completely fits.
I want to thank everybody who stopped by to take a look and make a caption or make a comment, whatever. Rags, when I get
I didn't see any comments. I just see
the comments. Yeah, they come up on the chat. Some people pop in and out. I just hear like somebody just said dope.
Dope.
But definitely when I get some money in my pocket, I'm gonna beg you to do an alternate cover for my comic book heat. I'm gonna beg with money, but I'm gonna beg.
Go beg with money.
There you go.
All right.
Y'all, everyone have
time. I have time for it. Absolutely.
All right, I appreciate it. All right, everyone, have a good evening. I will have the next guest. I will mark. I don't have the next guest right now information, but I will for next Thursday. So please come on back and you'll have a laugh. You'll learn something. Thank you for coming to Stoked Podcast and have a good evening.
Thank you.